Why is it so important to name your brand, your business correctly?
I always try to tell people, think of your product like a book. Like, how would you name a book?
How do I enact that name change? Do I just swoop in and do it? Do I change the logo too?
But maybe you don't need to. You don't always have to. If you don't know what colors you want, font stylings you want, here's a cheat way to do it.
Because clarity beats cleverness.
Right. You need a naming strategy. The vast majority of people have no naming strategy.
And so explain what that means.
Hey, welcome back to the Trainwreck Show. I'm your host, Perry Belcher, along with the Wizard of Ops, Emma Rainville. I usually have a funny pun right there where I make fun of you or I say something really mean. I'm feeling kind and gentle today.
Maybe it's because we're more casual. We're a little bit more laid back.
That might be it. I ate my Wheaties this morning. I'm all good. I got laid last night. It was good.
Oh, God.
So I feel so much better.
You want to open the show with what you're supposed to open with?
Yeah. What am I supposed to open with?
The
immovable object that is operations with the unstoppable force that is marketing and sales. That's who we are. We try to give some advice, share some of our experiences. We've had a lot of experiences in different realms of this business. I've sold about $1 billion worth of product online. Emma's probably worked with companies that sold a lot more than that. And running the back and the ops of those companies. We've done it all. We've seen it all. When I think we've done it all. And something else pops up, so be careful. I always say, I'm not smarter than everybody else. I've just screwed up more than everybody else has.
I think we just say yes more often.
Yeah, if you want to avoid mistakes, it's a good place to be. We try to hop on and give some marketing lessons, and we bring on guests and interviews. If you haven't been to the show before, welcome. I hope you enjoyed it here. So what are we going to talk about today, Emma?
Sure. So I really wanted to spend some time talking about product naming, brand naming, business naming. Prior to me meeting you, I don't think I put the attention to those things. You have been very instrumental to a lot of our mastermind members on the naming of their businesses and their products, or the renaming, which went from dead products to good products. And I think that there's a lot of different nuances. This is going to be the most boring one because I'm not going to argue with you much. We'll see. We'll see.
Tsunami, tornado, earthquake.
I branded myself quite well, haven't I? But I want to walk through that, and I want to help other people walk through that in their own businesses. And I've watched you since we started doing Make It Real together, 8-9 months now.
Something like that.
Since we started doing Make It Real together, I've been watching you. That's part of what you do with them. And I've been watching just the magic that happens. But it goes from your brain to your mouth. And you don't really ever explain to people the whys. So I wanted to take some time for our audience to learn that from you. So I think my first question is, why is it so important to name not only your brand, your business name correctly, but then your products, your premiums? Why is it so important what you call something?
It's strategic, right? You need a naming strategy. The vast majority of people have no naming strategy.
Explain what that means.
Yeah. If you were to go to New York City and talk to an advertising agency and say, hey, I get this widget, and I want to sell this widget. That's what Procter & Gamble does, for instance. And they'll go to a company like Alexandria Watkins Company and say, hey, we got this mop thing that they developed that has a microfiber towel on the end of a stick, and we want to sell it. And they would name that the Swiffer, which is what ended up happening, right? The Swiffer was a $75,000 naming project, if you can believe that. Somebody got paid $75,000 to name it. Totally worth it, right? There are methodologies to creating names that a lot of work has to go in before the name gets created. What we do as business owners, most of the time, we see it as it doesn't matter that much kind of thing. And we typically name it whatever pops to mind, maybe something cute, maybe something catchy, maybe something dumb. I'll tell a story about a company called Fesco Filters that I bought that was a water filtration company that sounded like something festered inside the water filter. Awful. There's intention, and you really have to understand before you go to name something, who's the avatar you're selling it to, what emotions do you want the product to emote, what's going to be memorable. There are different things that you name within the business. Most people are like, I'm going to name my business this, or I'm going to name my product that. Different rules apply to those different areas of branding or naming. Before you ever get to your brand, before you get to the logo. Is it going to be pretty in print? Is it going to be easy to spell? If you say it on the radio, in a radio commercial, are people going to know how to spell it when they go to type it into a computer or when they go to look it up? Is it memorable? Does it emote something that it does? Is it descriptive? If it's not descriptive, you need a tagline. So there's all sorts of things that go into naming. And I always try to tell people, think of your product like a book. Like, how would you name a book? And would it fund? That's a big piece for me. Whether I'm going to raise money for something or not, I want to know that if I walked in front of a team of venture capitalists, I wouldn't feel stupid saying, oh, this is the extra super duper sweeper system. Nobody's going to fund that. Somebody might fund the Swiffer, but the Swiffer has the little swirl to it. It emotes that it's going to be quick. There's a lot of time that went into that. There are really three big areas that I've found. Naming your company, which is probably the least important thing you'll name, but it's important still. Naming your products or your brand lines are really important. Procter & Gamble doesn't mean a lot to people, right? It's a big corporation. It doesn't mean a lot. But Palmolive dishwashing liquid
Right.
means something. Joy dishwashing liquid. Great name, right? Yellow bottle, sunshiny. Joy. It's going to be so joyful washing dishes. Or Tide. That means the Tide washes away everything, right? Think about the naming of that product, Tide, right? What's the Tide do on the beach? It washes everything away. So it really is smart. Small letters, very memorable. The fewer letters, the better. And that product name really doesn't have to mean anything. It can be descriptive or not. Like Google,
Right.
doesn't mean anything. But it's memorable, right?
I think it actually does have a meaning, but nobody knows.
It's a number
Yeah.
of digits, yeah. The geeks know it.
Devin is the only person.
But
I know
like
that would know
Formula 409, how many people have used Formula 409? It was the 409th formula they came up when formulating this cleaner. And nobody could come up with a better name.
it. Formula 401.
Or Bounty paper towels. So Bounty's not a great name. Not a true, it's easy to remember, but not a great name. So what do? They have a great tagline. What's a tagline?
I don't clean.
The quicker picker upper.
Is that it?
It's a tagline.
Okay.
It
Isn't
absorbs more liquid than anything else, right? So you got to have a great tagline if you don't have a descriptive brand. Like FedEx used to be Federal Express. Nobody knew what Federal Express was. They were selling a brand new concept, but they had an amazing tagline when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. That was their tagline. And then over time, when they rebranded to FedEx, because it only took up 5 letters and smaller names are better. The shorter the name, the better, except in luxury goods.
I was just going to say, does your type of brand
Yes.
matter?
Yeah. Luxury goods can be longer. Harry Winston is a great example. Yeah. Luxury brands, there's a whole different
Set of rules
for luxury brands. They're completely different. And normally they're named after a person, a founder, Gucci or Ferragamo, or they're named after the designer or whatever. Not always, but most of the time something along those lines. They use a completely different font set. If you don't think about, like, when you're naming is one thing, but you're eventually going to take that name and put it in type in a logo. If you don't understand how important it is to think these things through. Imagine that you took the typeset and the covers, typeset and the colors of the McDonald's logo, and you did the Tiffany and Company logo in those colors and fonts on
Those
the
are
building.
all wrong. Those colors are economy.
The font's
cheap.
wrong. The
Everything,
color's wrong.
everything.
Take
It's fast and cheap.
Take the Tiffany letters and the colors and stick it on a hamburger restaurant.
Yeah, no way.
But most people will say, I'm going to make my logo blue or I'm going to make it green. They don't think about why.
So let's talk about that. I want to back up. It's great that you brought that up because this was actually like the next thing I was going to come into. Again, and make it real. I've seen you go through and you name these businesses with these people. And then you go over the fonts and the colors.
Sure.
And the amount of times that you have laughed at someone and just, that's all wrong. There was a girl one time that wanted her colors to be like pink, purple, and gold. but she wanted like a very serious business that
Yeah.
surrounded helping children.
Yeah.
But it was more like psychiatry, right?
Yeah.
So you looked at her like she was absolutely insane, and then you broke down to her in a really great way on structuring colors with name, feel, and avatar. So
Yeah,
would
there's a
you
color.
cover
There's a
that?
color chart that we can give them. My color
Okay.
usage chart. You can give them if we want to put that in the resources at the show notes.
Okay.
But you can do that. Here's a cheat way to do it. If you don't know what colors you want and you don't know the font stylings you want, things like that, look at the biggest brands that you're competing with. Who are the giants in your field? If you look at the vast majority of laundry detergents, they're blue and yellow. Blue, yellow, and orange, almost all of them. So somebody figured out that blue, yellow, and orange
Cells.
is what people respond to if they want something clean, right? If you look at pesticides, it's black and red.
Right.
You have this black and red. If it's discount fun, it's yellow and red. It's McDonald's. It's
Whataburger.
It's Whataburger. It's Frito-Lay. If you want more expensive, it's usually jewel tone muted. Like the colors are muted, they're downplayed a little
They're like
bit.
green and golds, right?
Yeah, they're downplayed a little bit. And they can be a multitude of any jewel tone color. If you look at pharmaceuticals, they're usually greens and teals. If you look at mental pharmaceuticals, they're almost always purple.
Right.
So if you look at like Xanax and Lexapro and all those head meds, they're almost always
The ones
purple.
in your cabinet.
Because, yeah, of course. So purple stirs emotions, a very emotional color. But lavender's different. Lavender means lavender and sage green is nature and beauty and a lot
Breath
of
work and singing bowls.
So there's a whole chart of colors, and you can use a chart of colors.
So you want your color scheme to cause the same emotion
That you're trying to emote from the name.
that you're trying to, but let's take that a little bit farther to the product that you're trying to.
Yeah. You've got a bunch of ways you can name a product. One way to almost never go wrong is what's the desired end result of the customer.
What's the desired end result of the customer?
Yeah.
Naming for entrepreneurs are going to be hard. You know this, right?
Pardon?
Taking this information and applying it, like
Yeah.
naming products and businesses for entrepreneurs, particularly like the ones that we know that are super creative. It's hard because they come
Yeah.
up with these crazy names.
Yeah.
Like we've seen it
The
throughout the
super
years.
duper deluxe method system.
There's some
formula.
that have some like really good. They have.
Yeah.
It's really good, and you find that in copywriters who understand marketing. But then you'll see the product is got a raw ingredient from Brazil, and the story that they're using to sell it is I was hiking through the rainforest
Right.
in Brazil, and then they make up some like Brazilian fat fixer.
Brazilian fat fixer. That sounds legit. But if you look at pharmaceuticals, they typically are using the core ingredient of the product.
Let's say wasabi extract for weight loss.
Yeah, maybe. But if you look at pharma, when you're looking at something like hydrocortisone cream, right? There's a hydrazone 10 or something like that. They usually have a variation of the name of the ingredient in the product that identifies it. But it usually in pharmaceuticals, they got a tagline that helps to clarify
Right.
what it is. If you're looking at like info products, one of the best product namers ever was a guy named Eben Pagan. He's still around, but he doesn't do a lot of
Edmund
this anymore.
Pagan.
Eben, Eben Pagan. And he had a company called Double Your Dating, which was a great product. He sold hundreds of millions of dollars.
Dating
with this
offer?
product. It was a dating offer. And what was the desired end result? The guys wanted more dates. Double your dating. I remember Chris Haddad did Make Him Beg You to Marry Him. That great
remember.
book title. Eben's other product was Wake Up Productive. It was a time management productivity product. So it's like, what's the desired end result of the customer? And can you get that to an abbreviated enough thing? My favorite example, and I've worn it out, is the company Beachbody that does P90X. Who doesn't want a Beachbody? Everybody wants a beach body, not a beach whale body like I've got, but a beach body. They really do. So they hit it all. There was a flower company when I was a kid growing up that sponsored the Grand Ole Opry, and I love country music, Martha White Flour. And Martha White was a made-up person. By the way, so was Betty Crocker. Food products are often named after a person, but that person doesn't actually have to exist. When they did Betty Crocker cake mixes and they sold them on radio before there was TV, they sold like crazy. And when there was TV, they had to find somebody to be Betty Crocker. There was no Betty Crocker. Everybody thought Betty Crocker must be this famous cook or this famous baker. She didn't exist. They made her up. General Mills made her up. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I knew that there were some of them Aunt Jemima's made up.
I guess. I'm not sure. There's a side story, by the way, this has nothing to do with naming, but it's a good side story. With Betty Crocker, when they brought out the cake mix, you dumped it in a bowl and poured in water, and it made a cake. And women wouldn't buy it. It didn't sell. They didn't feel like they were actually making a cake. It was an instant cake because it had dried eggs in it, right? So they took the eggs out of the formula and made it to where you had to crack one egg and put it into the cake mix, and then it sold. Isn't that funny?
It's crazy.
It sold like crazy. As soon as they did that, it sold like crazy. Naming something, you can name it more hokey. You're finding today more modern branding. People are much more scientific about it now. Companies like Graza for olive oil, this $75 million olive oil company in 1 year.
Right.
Or Truff. That's a truffle oil infused hot sauce. Or I'm trying to think of some others. But short names, Yeti.
Yeah.
Which means nothing, by the way. It was just it was the only 4-letter name they could find. And a Yeti's a big Sasquatch or whatever. A little like you. But when you get into these products, beyond naming the company, now you name the product, right? So the company can have a name that's the desired end result. It can have a name that's corporate. It could be, it almost doesn't matter, except that sometimes, like Beachbody, it's on your credit card receipt. So you want it to be memorable.
Yeah.
Then you got a product. So like in Beachbody's case, they had P90X, for instance, or Insanity. There were these workout products, and they're just memorable names. They don't necessarily mean anything, like Formula 409 for cleaning. It doesn't mean anything. Or Bounty doesn't really mean anything. It's the quicker picker. So you usually have a really good tagline. When you have a name that doesn't explain what your book is, like for instance, Scope doesn't really tell you a lot about the book, but it's an operational framework, right? You have to explain a little more. If your name is not descriptive, like the FedEx name was actually descriptive, but only to the people who knew FedEx.
Right.
Because the packages followed the federal check clearing system. Do you know that?
No.
Yeah.
No idea.
So there were planes back then. There were airplanes that flew checks. This is back, man, when I was you whippersnappers don't remember, but they're used to when checks actually got put into bags and got sent to the Federal Reserve Bank. It took 2 weeks to clear a check. I used to run businesses off floating checks. I'd write a check that I didn't have money for to buy merchandise that I had to sell before the check cleared back in the day.
Wow.
But they had a system of flying these checks on airplanes between banks to clear the checks. And Fred Smith rented space on those check clearing planes to carry his overnight packages. And that's how the whole thing was designed, around the hub and spoke system of the United States Postal Service and the bank check clearing system.
How interesting.
Yeah. So he named it Federal Express. So it had the implication of being a kind of pseudo-government
Right.
agency. And it wasn't at all.
That's brilliant.
But it did say express. So it meant fast. And then they added the tagline when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. But if you look at Domino's Pizza, Domino's doesn't mean anything when it comes to pizzas. What's a domino have to do with pizza? But they had a nice icon. Everybody remembered the word domino. And they had a great tagline.
Right. Because clarity beats cleverness.
Right. Hot pizza in 30 minutes
Right.
or less, or it's free. Maybe the greatest tagline ever written in the history of taglines. It's took the most commoditized product in the world and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company. That he traded a Volkswagen for a $700 pizza oven to start that business. It's a great American success story. just the power of a headline. But one of the things I think people really do forget is after the name of the company and the name of the product, there's usually something, a unique mechanism that makes that product work, right? Naming that mechanism will set your branding off to a whole other level.
Give me some examples of that.
P90X, muscle confusion. They called it muscle confusion. You used all your micro muscles and your workouts changed every day.
So you didn't plateau or hit ceilings.
Right. Whether it was true or not, right? If you look at
I think it was proven to be very true.
If you look at Mad Men, right? They said Lucky Strikes, they're toasted. All tobacco was toasted. Or Falstaff beer, it's coal filtered. All beer is cold filtered. But they don't say it. Other companies don't say it. You know what I mean? Martha White flour, if you watched Oh Brother Where Art Thou, they called it the Pappy O'Daniel Flour Company, but it was really the Martha White Flour Company. And it's, go get yourself, you're going to make up a mess of biscuits. You need Martha White flour with hot rise. You know what hot rise was?
I have no idea but the way you said it.
Baking powder. They just put baking powder into flour.
Oh, wow.
And that made it, today still, there's self-rising flour.
Right. Is that all that means?
It's got baking powder and baking soda in it. It's normally when you baked, you had flour, you put in a little baking powder, put in a little baking soda, and you bake. If you buy self-rising flour.
I have no idea.
You don't bake, you don't clean. I'm sure there are all kinds of other things you don't do. But
I make enough money to not have to do some of those things.
But seriously, though, this flour company, how can you be more commoditized than flour?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, very hard to do. But you need to name that mechanism, and naming those mechanisms will change everything. Like we had a company, I bought that water filter company called Fesco. And when we bought the company, I got on the phone and I called all the customers. We only had 80 customers. It was a wholesale business. They bought a lot. But I said, why do you buy from us? There's 10 competitors. We're the smallest. Why do you even buy from us at all? And they said, when everybody else is super busy, you guys aren't, so we get our product faster. And okay, there's our USP now. So we changed our name to Rapid Filter. We interrupt this pod to bring you this really special announcement. You need to go right now. Well, maybe they want to go right now. Want to stop?
No, at the end. We don't want to have them stop.
Go to trainwreckshow.com. There's lots of bots there, GPT bots that do things for you, that do a lot of your work. So you don't have to work so much. You can drink more beer. The episode archives are over there. There's all of our resources, worksheets, workbooks. Everything that we've done that we give away is over there. Go get it right now. There's a lot of resources there. Way more resources than you get when you buy a lot of communities, I think.
And don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can catch every episode as soon as it hits. We'll send you a notification.
It doesn't mean you're liking Emma, by the way, because I know that slows us down on our likes. You can just click and say, I like Perry. You don't have to like Emma. It works the same way. And
I love that you're going into this, because this brings me to my next question is, what if I realize my company's 5 years old, 6 years old, I'm doing well, but clearly I could be doing better. What do I do? Can I just change my name? Do I have to relaunch everything? Do I have to take everything down?
You're damn right. You can change your name. And in rare exception, and I will give you a rare exception, because we know the rare exception, when you rebrand a business, you will almost always get a lift.
Yep.
Almost always. And sometimes it's really substantial. We took Fesco filters. We did our first trade show. Our colors were blue and yellow, because guess what? Culligan, all the water filtration companies, blue and yellow. I'm like, okay, blue and yellow. We had a tornado swirl looking logo, which meant speed. And we called ourselves Rapid Filter. And we took a filter making machine to a trade show. And we wrote more sales in that trade show than they had written in the previous 10 years of that trade show. We had uniforms with the logo. Our colors we were wearing the same clothes, the same carpet. Everything worked. And all of a sudden, we were a big deal. And you know who felt it more than anyone? The employees. They felt this pride in it. And they felt newfound hope and newfound excitement. And if you name these things right, you'll get this whole surge, right? Now, let me tell you when not to do it. Don't buy an established business and then immediately change the name.
Right.
It's probably the dumbest thing you can do. And I know we know people who have done it that'll buy a business and then say, now that I bought it and spent a lot of money,
and change everything.
Especially for a business that has no physical location, no serious foundation.
Right.
The only thing you could be paying for is a name.
Right.
Now, if you kill that name, you just deleted all your value, right? Day one. But I've watched so many people do it. They'll buy a restaurant and then change the name of the restaurant. What the hell would you do that for?
Why
not just start a restaurant? Start a restaurant. If you're going to start from scratch. But when you're working on these, now a lot of times what I'll do, this is an interesting little strategy. I don't really teach this, but I will create Nuco. And we did this with Rapid Filter. Let's say today I buy Fesco filters, right? And I'm going to rebrand. I don't rebrand. I create Rapid Filter, Nuco, and then I put out a press release that Rapid Filter, that Fesco Filters has been acquired by Rapid Filter for an undisclosed sum. Now, we've got a reason to call all of our customers. We've got a reason to tell them about a new direction that we're taking or a new resources we have or whatever the case may be due to the acquisition. It's pretty smart.
It's very smart.
And it'll give you a whole whitewashing. If you've got customers mad at you, you can oftentimes get them back. They'll give you a second chance because you watch people do it with restaurants and hotels and stuff where you see a sign up, this is under new management. That's usually up if that business sucked before. Because people go, it's under new management, I'll give it another shot. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like we named our process of making our filters the Stericoil process. And in our business, we used UV light and steam to sterilize the filters before they were packed in the poly bags. Guess what? So did everyone. But nobody had a Stericoil process but us, right? And it gave me something to talk about. Because when you're sitting in a booth holding a water filter, there ain't a lot to talk about. It gave me something to talk about, and we got to talk about our process and why we felt our process was superior. And it worked great. Where I did screw up, I'll tell you the screw ups. And Perry's made a couple screw ups in his life. If you can imagine that.
Shocking. I don't believe it. How many times have you been married?
We 4X'd the business.
In what period of time?
Less than 6 months. Guess what we weren't anymore?
Fast.
Rapid.
Right.
So our window started moving out.
Right.
And we lost customers. We still gained net gain. And we were able to, the capital came in eventually to get us, we used some creative financing, some factoring and stuff to get more equipment because we had to. But it almost broke the company. But our sales went up 400% from really us doing nothing but, we called every customer, 80 customers. Some of them hadn't been called in 2 years. And we rebranded. And that was it. We put out new literature, new catalogs, started an email drip campaign. And we brought in a little high school girl that would come in 2 hours a day every afternoon.
We brought in a little high school girl. She weighed about 17 and a half.
About 17 and a half. I think she was 18 as far as I remember.
Oh, right.
That's what I told the judge. But no, I'm joking. She's a sweet little girl. But she's
going to write in.
But she did she did 2 hours of calls every day. And she would call 50 customers in about 2 hours. And we called our entire customer list every month. Just to tell them about what specials we had this month and whatnot. That's all I did. We had a CRM. We put in a CRM because they didn't have a CRM. That was it. And we went from a $2 million company to $8 million company in 6 months.
I think that's the thing about, I don't want to get off topic, but I think that's the thing about service is the second, like I walked into a commercial HVAC company and they were thinking that they were doing really great at $563,000 a year. And we were at $7 million within 12 months. And it's simple marketing.
I did with Ryan. We went from $2 million to either 7 or 9. We went to $7 million in 9 months or $9 million in 7. I can't remember. I think it was $7 million.
Something outstanding.
It was a lot. I've got a buddy of mine. His whole business is revitalizing dental offices. So he goes to dental offices and says, hey, I'll totally revitalize your business and reactivate all your customers. We're going to double your practice in 60 to 90 days. And they say, okay, we'll do it. And he said, I want half of all the services that I sell for the first 60 days. That's my fee. There is no risk to me.
Yeah.
But I get half of all the services I sell. And they say, okay. And he says, cool, give me your customer list. And they call and email the customer list. That's it.
That's incredible.
And they'll sell $200,000-$300,000 worth of dental services in 60 days and reactivate all these customers because the customers were just never contacted.
Okay, so I want to, yeah, it is always fascinating
Yeah.
when the amount of people who spend so much money for leads
Acquiring
and never call them,
never do
it's
anything so
with
much
them.
easier to get a customer to buy from you again than it is to get them to buy from you. I would say this is a Perry quote. I don't make a lot of original quotes. I think today is the hardest time in history to get someone to buy from you the first time. And I think it's the easiest time in history to get somebody to buy from you the second, third, and fourth times.
I want to go back to the naming, right?
Sure.
And then we'll close out. So I understand exactly what to do if I acquire a new company. I'm not sure that I understand if I have a company that's 5, 6 old and I've been selling a product. How do I enact that name change? Do I just swoop in and do it?
Yeah.
What do I change the logo to? Do I make?
Well, I would do that acquisition play if it were me.
You do the same exact
I
thing?
do the exact same way. But maybe you don't need to. You don't always have to. The fact that the name is not perfectly strategic, you've got to weigh that, right? Because if you've got a good name in the industry and your good reputation in the industry, even though the name's not terrific, maybe you can shorten it. Kentucky Fried Chicken is what
KFC.
now? Now it's KFC. So you might be able to shorten it without abandoning it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
It was just a marketing plan to bring attention. There were so many people that said that Kentucky Fried Chicken changed their name because they had so little chicken that it became an FTC violation, and that's why they changed it. There's tons of articles about it. But the reality is they had a new CMO come in, and they were trying to find ways to refresh the brand because they were dying amongst...
It's an old brand, old school brand.
It's an old school brand.
Fried foods.
But on the scale of fast food, it's way better than McDonald's or...
Right.
And so how do we rebrand and just get noticed? That's all he wanted to do was get noticed.
In the Philippines right now, they've started putting it on the signs. It's McDo.
Really?
Yeah, not even the full-length McDonald's anymore on a lot of the restaurants.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, you're seeing, I was trying to think of some other examples that have shortened their name. But there's a lot of companies out there now that are shrinking the name down. KFC is a really easy one to remember.
KFC is a really easy one.
And you're seeing stuff like licensing, too, which is interesting. It shows you the power of a name. Tide has licensed their brand to dry cleaners. You can buy a Tide dry cleaning franchise.
No kidding.
And they're awesome. They're beautiful stores because they're big, bright orange and blue, and you recognize it, and you tend to take your clothes there for dry cleaning. So the names have, at the end of the day, the names have the most value. Everything else is secondary. Trump talks about his net worth being X billions of dollars, and he puts like a $3 billion valuation on the Trump name itself, which is subjective, but there's probably some truth to that.
He's suing people and getting about $1 billion a year for using his name.
Yeah.
So there might be some validity.
Yeah.
I want to just keep us going towards the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
I'd love to know, okay, so I have my name.
Yep.
How do I pressure test it before I go spend all kinds of money? What's a good way?
You kind of got to roll the dice on that. But
I like to do focus groups. It's so cheap.
I've never been one to do them.
It's so cheap.
I just don't think they tell the truth.
You don't think focus groups tell the truth?
I don't think so.
Why do you think that? Because you would lie?
Everybody's got an opinion, but it doesn't matter. I love Henry Ford's take on focus groups. If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have had me make a faster horse. I think that people don't really...
But then you also say you're selling what people want to buy. You're selling what you want to sell.
Yeah.
So it's the conundrum.
But you're not asking them to buy it. I believe in buyer tests all day long.
100% I'm in agreement there. But when you do focus groups on things like naming, color schemes, images, you're not doing the 100 or 1,000 people focus groups that you would do for a product.
Right.
You're doing it to 20,000 people.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Focus groups are
But can I tell you something? I focus grouped my company name
Focus groups are
And
used
you hate it.
by
You absolutely hate it.
Focus groups are used by huge agencies, huge corporations. There's some validity to the science. But I think when you ask somebody, look at the last election, right?
Okay.
All the polls were wrong. Every poll was wrong, right?
Was it wrong or was it within margin?
It was within margin, but awful lot. Polls have not been very accurate because you ask somebody who you're going to vote for. It doesn't necessarily mean
You
that's who
ask
they're
a
going to
sample
vote for.
size, right? You're asking a sample size of who
If
you're
I were
going
going to test, if I'm going to
people
test a
out there.
product, what I would do is maybe put the product up 3 different ways, and then give people walking into a room $10 to go buy the product with, and they can choose which one they want to spend their $10 on.
Oh, that's actually pretty
You know,
freaking smart.
at least you, and they get to take the product home with them.
Can I tell you, epiphany, sidetracked, that would be amazing if you have a like product, you put the product on as a bonus and they pick the bonus. It's the same
Yeah.
exact product with a different name
and
they pick the bonus. That is so smart, actually.
I think people vote with their wallets, and what they tell
Yeah,
you, like
that's good.
when people are telling me, I got this great idea, and everybody says I ought to sell it, and I say, great, how many of them have bought one from you? None of them yet. So why don't you make 20 of these widgets
And go sell them to the people told you to sell them to.
and see if 20 people buy them?
Yeah.
And they almost never do. People will give you these niceties, and I think that's what you run into in focus groups. Either people who want to be nice, or people like you who just want to be contrarian. You would just say contrarian shit just to be contrarian. I would say stuff to be nice because I'm a good human. But I'm joking. But you see what I'm saying, though. I think they have a place. I would love to ask Rory Sutherland his opinion on focus groups, because he's really big, and he talks a great deal about people voting with their wallets. He said, if you had asked, this is a great example. If you had went to a focus group and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this new soft drink. It's going to come in a can a little less than half the size of current soft drinks. It's going to cost 4 times more. It's going to taste like shit, but you're going to get a bolt of energy after you drink it. Who would like to invest? The answer would have been practically nobody. So Red Bull wouldn't have sold because it went contrarian to everything.
Right.
You got a smaller container at 4 or 5 times the price, and it just tastes awful.
Awful.
But look at it. It's a multi-billion-dollar phenomenon.
I don't understand it. Monsters,
I know
too.
why. If you read about it, you'd understand why. They can actually make it taste better. They don't on
because
purpose.
It tastes like medicine, and people think they're getting medicine.
And medicine works.
They're crazy.
There's a placebo effect to Red Bull. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? There's also a placebo effect to Red Bull and vodka. It's called Perry puking on a sidewalk in front of his house because he can't make it all the way in the front door. There's that effect.
I love that I'm one of the few people that have seen you.
I love Red Bull and vodka. Because I'm really alert drunk.
What doesn't make sense about it is you don't drink Red Bull outside of the bar.
Ever.
Oh,
I hate the taste of it.
Ever. But it gets you in a bar.
If I really want to go, if I'm going to go hard, I'm going to drink Red Bull and vodka, because if I go hard on old fashions, I'm just trash.
Oh,
I love them. The one time you've seen me tore up from the floor up was old fashions.
The one time?
I think that's the most tore up I've ever been, is that night.
I think that's the most tore up I've ever seen you, but I've seen
in front of all of our lawyers, by the way, which was really awesome.
I've seen you.
At least I had somebody to get me out of jail.
I saw you the night. We can edit this out if you don't want me to. But I saw you the night that you had Red Bull and vodka, and you got behind Glenn Ledwell and proceeded to
dry hump him or something.
Absolutely dry hump him. Yeah. And the craziest part about it, I'll never forget it. I was standing with Zion Kim and Alex. I'm standing and watching, and I'm just like, oh my God, what's Glenn gonna do? And Glenn started backing up into you. And I was like, what is wrong with him?
Yeah.
I
love Red Bull and vodka.
But I have seen you pretty tore up.
Yeah. I've not drank any. I haven't drank
Not as many times as you see me.
I don't think
I've
drank a Red Bull and vodka in 3 or 4 years now. It's been a while. 2 3 years.
That was Austin. Probably 4 years. Yeah. We've been together 3 years, probably 4 years.
A, I'm not driving anywhere. B, I'm with a friend that can get me to a room if I need to.
Glenn Ledwell is not the person I would trust to get me to the room.
Yeah, he's not the friend. He's not the friend. All right.
All right, anyway, back to naming. This is just... We always bring it back, though.
You don't always have to rename it. If you've got a good reputation, keep it and try to figure out how you can modernize. Because people modernize logos and modernize branding all the time. TWA was Trans World Airlines before. Everybody tends to shrink their names as they get more and more mature and people know who they are. And you don't necessarily want to do away with the name. If you don't want to do away with the name, you can modernize the name.
Okay. Before we go,
Yep.
do we have something in the toolbox we can give people for a train wreck?
Yeah. I've got a GPT that names mechanisms, companies, and brands. And let's put it in. Let's put it in and give it to them. So it's really actually pretty good. But to be honest, you really need to run your avatar GPT first so you understand who your buyer avatar is. So let's give them that one too.
Buyer avatar.
Because if you take the buyer avatar and put it into the branding GPT, and it's going to give you a much better result
On what you should do.
Yeah, because if your product is predominantly sold to a female market that's 18 to 24, they're going to have a whole different set of branding and requirements than a female market 50 to 70.
That's very true.
Or a male market 34 to 60.
I feel like the male market 34 to 60 is right in line with the female market 19 to 24.
I would like to be lined up with that market. Yeah, that'd be great for me. I'm aligned. I can get aligned.
But you're over
if you
60
are
now.
in the female market.
But you're
18
over
to
60
20.
now.
I'm just over 60, yeah.
You're over 60 now. You're going to be 61.
Pretty soon, a couple months.
Do you know how many days?
No.
108 days.
108 days.
I've been counting it.
108 days.
I've been counting it down.
Dude, let me tell you something.
I've been counting it down.
I'm going to do this weird thing right now. Everywhere I go, I ask people now, hey, can I ask you a question? Sure. Gun to your head, how old do you think I am? And they've been giving me guesses. And I've been pleasantly surprised.
It's because people are nice.
I'm pleased. Yeah.
People are nice.
They are nice.
People are just
Nicer
being
than
nice
they
to you.
should be.
They're probably like, this guy looks 70. Let me down it 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm just playing with you. You don't look 60, which is...
I'm sure it's all going to set in one day, and I'm just going to wake up and look real freaking old and wrinkly. Because I look at people that I went to high school with in my freaking Facebook, and I want to die. I'm like, oh my.
Dude, it's either one way or another for me.
God. I don't see any
At
of
my
mine.
age, it's either one way or another. Either they look like their grandmothers, or they look super young and hot. And then
The
I wish
hottest
them
girl
death.
in my high school looks like my mom now.
The hottest.
Oh my God.
The hottest girl
She was so hot.
in my high school is probably about 240 pounds.
This girl didn't get big. She just got old.
Yeah.
But women get old and men get distinguished, so that's the way that.
All right, so wrapping this up, we're going to get them the buyer avatar. We're going to get them the naming GPT.
Yeah.
If you enjoy
And it will actually give them, the naming GPT will help them write taglines too.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you're going to name just remember that. If you're going to name your thing brand,
Make sure you do your tagline.
And it doesn't mean something, make sure you have a good tagline.
Awesome. Head over to www.trainwreckshow.com. Grab your GPTs from today, and we have tons of other stuff in there.
Yes,
as well.
lots of free resources.
Lots of free resources. They're free tools. It's just the free tools button. Grab it, like and subscribe so that when we drop these, you're the first one to know about it. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks. Take care.